Money and corruption are ruling the land. Crooked politicians betray the working man, pocketing the profits and treating us like sheep. And we are tired of hearing promises that we know they'll never keep. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Similarities with Sri Lanka. Let's see what transpires tonight on our discussion right here on Face the Nation, Monday at 9:30 p.m. live on TV1. Our discussion today revolves around the central bank bond controversy. There has been several updates on the central bank bond controversy. We saw a commission report being tabled in Parliament. Now it is in the public domain. Now the story is that the senior additional Solicitor General, Daplo Delivera, and several others who investigated the central bank bond scam has been sidelined from instituting legal action. If that is the case, who is going to take action? There's also news that the Singapore Prime Minister arrived in Sri Lanka this evening. Now it is not yet clear what sort of discussions would ensue between the Singapore Prime Minister, the President of Sri Lanka, as well as the Prime Minister, given the fact that the former governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, who is amidst of all this controversy, is a Singapore national. It is not yet clear. However, we will have to wait and see what sort of discussions will transpire in the next few days as well. Several weeks from the much-awaited local government polls on the 10th of February 2018, how will all this play out? To discuss all this and more, we've invited several guests this evening on our show tonight as well. Our usual critics as well as who've been very vocal on the central bank bond controversy, along with the former chairman of COPE. Let me quickly introduce them to you. Joining us this evening again is attorney at law, Mr. Krishmal Varnasuri. Nice to have you on the show, Krishmal.
Thanks.
Also joining us this evening is Mr. Hemantha Varnakulasuriya, President's Counsel. Nice to have you on the show as well, Mr. Varnakulasuriya. Joining us this evening for the second time is Mr. D.E.W. Gunasekara, former chairman of COPE. And also joining us this evening is none other than Mr. Rusirpal Thanakun, who is a senior banker and also a civil rights activist. So let's start off tonight's show with the former chairman of COPE, Mr. D.E.W. Gunasekara. Mr. Gunasekara, you've predicted this. You've said that there has been a scam right throughout, from day number one. Tell us what did really happen. In your COPE report that you submitted, just weeks before it was submitted, we know that Parliament was dissolved. Tell us a little bit about what was in this report in question.
Briefly, I must first give the background. You can remember when this news flashed in the media, that's the 27th of February, this central bank, the bond scam had taken place. This was raised on the floor of the House in Parliament. And I myself was in the opposition. We raised this question. Then promptly the Prime Minister stood up and he said, I'm going to appoint a committee. And immediately, as soon as possible, I will get the report. So the matter ends there. And we waited for 3 months. Nothing happened. Then again, every other day we used to raise this question. And finally there was a big storm in the country, in the House. And Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa had to intervene. And he said, before that, in the meantime, this report was out and Prime Minister read out this report. And according to the report, he says Arjuna Mahendran is exonerated. And we have no authority to probe into the details. Some other authority will have to do the investigation. So that was the report given by the Pittipan Committee. And immediately the Speaker said, then I refer this matter to the COPE. And he asked me, I was in the House, and he asked me to take it over. And he says, as speedily as possible, to get me at least an interim report. Because on the both sides of the House, there's a demand that some investigation should take place immediately. Then on the following day, and he said, don't wait for all the 31 members of the COPE, you appoint a special committee. So then on the following day, I summoned the COPE committee, and got 13 members representing all the political parties. And we started work on the following day. So this is a matter, I mean, this complex investigation, as I knew. So therefore, I first thought that I must get our MPs be briefed about the working of the central bank and issue of bonds and treasury bills and all the rest of it. And I got the support, assistance of Dr. Vijayawardena, and he came and conducted for 2 days awareness program. That is how we started. So I was assisted by the acting Auditor General at that time was Chula Vikramaratne. He's a bright Auditor General, he was acting. And luckily there was a team of auditors attached to the central bank, and they had done an excellent job of work. They briefed us as to really gave the background of how the operation took place. And from there onwards, I started summoning all the officials. It started with the Secretary of Finance, 1 full day, questioned him, and ended up with Arjun Mahendra for 2 days. We were questioning him.
Mr. Gunasekara, I just want to interrupt you for a second here. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that in the event the Prime Minister took action on the COPE report at that time, that the situation would have been much better in Sri Lanka right now?
Now, my report, I couldn't present my report to the Parliament. Parliament dissolved on the same day that I was to present the report. So there was no occasion for the Prime Minister because official report was not there, as far as the first COPE report was concerned. So then, but anyway, what happened was, when I prepared the interim report, at that time, some of the MPs, UNP MPs objected to the presentation of interim report. Why not give the full report, wait for some time? But the Speaker insisted, and also members, both sides of the House, at least they wanted an interim report. So I prepared the interim report. In the meantime, while we were discussing, we got the news that Parliament was dissolved, so we could not do anything. Then, I mean, the immediate reaction was that one of our members of the COPE committee, Sujiva Senasinghe, he went to the district court on the following day. And, yeah, then I got summons on the following day itself. And they prevented from being, so I could not even speak out on anything. Normally, traditionally, the COPE chairman, unless the report is ready, he won't come out with what it contained. But anyway, in the meantime, the Prime Minister made a statement to the press that I'm going to, because some news items appeared in the Sunday Times, that he got perturbed. He went to the Speaker and then I think said, I'm going to file, they want the Parliament to take action on the underprivileges.
Thank you very much.
So that is what happened up to the end of the dissolution of Parliament.
Thank you very much, Mr. D.W. Gunasekara, former chairman of the Committee on Public Enterprise.
My evidence I collected was running to 449 pages. That was the first investigation, and based on that only the second report was constructed.
Thank you very much.
And based on the second report and the first report, the Commission prepared its own report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gunasekara. I want to move my attention now to Mr. Krishmal Varanasuri, who is also an attorney at law and who has been very vocal on the central bank bond controversy. Krishmal, what is happening right now in Sri Lanka? People don't know, people are not aware. You have the central bank bond commission report, which is out now in the public domain. Anyone can download it, read the recommendations. Many say that you can't even find the entire commission report as well. But what is transpiring right now in Sri Lanka? You've been observing all these events. In your opinion, what do you think is happening right now?
Thank you, Shamit. Thanks for inviting us once again. I'd like to approach your question in this manner, if I may. As an aggrieved citizen, today I come to your studio from a very emotional background where we laid to rest one of our batchmates. Indeed, it's not only emotional for me, maybe for Faraz and Nadeem as well, who went to the same school by the sea in Mount Lavinia. where Major Sean Anthony's was laid to rest for injuries he suffered in around 2002 as part of a deep penetrative unit. The shrapnel which were inside his body remained there because they couldn't be dislodged for medical reasons, and one of them escaped, went through the bloodline and severed a artery, and he died 2 nights ago. Now these and several other sons and daughters of this country are real heroes, people that we ought to talk about and people that we need to write about and tell our children about. But now I've seen, since after the Bond report came out, Shamir, some cardboard heroes, some cardboard sandos have suddenly arisen from nowhere. I have heard statements like, if we wanted, we could have, not put as chairman of COPE so and so. If we wanted, we could have suppressed the media and said white trans also. Apit Chandi, Wanava, Pona, Po, some new Chandis have arisen after the Bond report came out. And I'd like to tell all these cardboard sandos that the citizens of this country that assured good governance in January 2015 would like to give you one answer. I'd like to in fact repeat the words of one-time president who said ever balawa. I'd like to tell all these cardboard sandos and heroes who are now telling us that they can also run government any way they want, try and see. Because the same people, we are cardboard sandos. When unmarked motorcyclists with black helmets are coming after court-martial hearings, when presidents are trying to put 18th Amendment and go for unlimited terms of office, when we carried coffins and went up Hulstop, and when we took on the roads when Lasanta was assassinated, we took on much bigger sandos than this. So if they think that the people of this country can be warned or threatened like this, I'm telling all of them, try and see. Because the people that changed the regime in January 2000 are still ready to change another one. They are well ready and we are well ready. Let's face it and see. So these cardboard sandos have come up, Shamir, because I think our people have been neutral. One time, another gentleman who went to a school by the sea, SWRD Bandaranaike Prime Minister, said, when he was referring to this non-alignment, which he called positive neutrality in international law, he said, look, this positive neutrality should not be taken as if we are cowards or that we are neutral or negative in any sense. He said, quite the contrary, we are absolutely positive. We are armed to the hilt. It's just that we want governance to run in a manner that is democratic. And to that end, I am saying that this report and the actions that now ensue, all of those citizens out there who are with us, who walked up to January 2015 and changed the regime, now need to watch to see whether what we assured ourselves, what we want for ourselves, we have got. Whether we will now put our mouth where, walk the talk, and whether we will actually go after the culprits and bring them to book now. If we need to make new laws, let's make new laws. If the present procedure is too much delayed, let's find ways of doing it. But let's now see whether the people who are actually interested or who say they're interested in seeing justice done, whether they'll actually do it.
Krishmal, you mentioned that there are some cardboard heroes right now who are expressing opinion.
Several of them.
Based on the fact that we've been a very fearless media network reporting on the central bank bond controversy.
Absolutely.
I want to put a name onto this individual question.
Sujiva
Senasinghe, who is now the state minister, also a member of parliament at that time, a member of the COPE committee as well. Now the question is, this very person was the one who went to the district court, as Mr. Gunasekar correctly pointed out, got an order against him.
And enjoy the legislature of the house. You see,
so he was trying to mislead the public from day number one. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. Now about the enjoining order itself, if I were somewhere there, I would have argued that, the COPE, the Committee of Public Enterprise, is an arm of an extension of the legislative power of the people. That's a sovereign power of the people. District courts can't enjoin the legislature. Even the Supreme Court, in that historic ruling, when Dr. Shirani Bandaranaike as Chief Justice, the 7 parliamentarians tried to judge her, thinking that they were smarter than the judges to judge the sitting judge. Even the Supreme Court took up their opinion. See, there is a separation of powers, and one organ of government, the judicial arm of government, can't enjoin the legislative arm of government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishmal Varanasuriya, attorney at law. I now move my attention to Mr. Hemantha Varanasuriya, who is the President's Counsel. Mr. Varanasuriya, before we start, can you take the mic and clip it a little slightly up? There you go. Let's do that first. Right. So thank you very much, Mr. Varanasuriya. You're very excited today. I can clearly see that. No wonder you had the mic in the wrong place.
Not genuinely.
Now, Mr. Varakul Surya, there's news today in the newspapers stating that Senior Additional Solicitor General Dapula de Oliveira, who investigated the central bank bond scam along with several others, that is including President's Councillor Asantha Kodagoda and Priyantha Napana, will not be playing a major role as far as instituting legal action based on the recommendations of the Presidential Commission is concerned. Now, you've been very vocal about the role of the Attorney General's Department, saying that they are doing a very good job. When you saw this news item on the papers today, were you upset or disappointed?
No, I was not upset or disappointed because I was the first person to disclose to the media in, I believe, Faras's Newsline. 1 week ago, about 10 days ago, I told the people of this country, the Attorney General has decided to hand over the committee report, which came on 4 trolleys. 4 trolleys, you know, the file carrying trolleys, not the big trolleys, but there were immense number of documents, papers, which I don't think anybody could even read through for several months. Now these were handed over to head of the civil branch of the Attorney General's Department, Mrs. Murudha Fernando. I think Additional Solicitor General, President's Council, we have absolutely no problem with her. Then also the Attorney General co-opted Mrs. Haripriya Jayasundara, a lady who has been doing criminal work, and Mr. Pulle. Now, and then he did not want, this was not given, the report was not given to Dapula de Oliveira or was not co-opted. Now this matter, after I raised, I wrote several letters to His Excellency the President and said this is very, very wrong and do something about it. And I mentioned this to the Secretary of the President also. I know what happened, but today, I'm telling you, today, the Attorney General has co-opted Asantha Kodagoda and Dapula de Oliveira into the same committee, and they are trying, now they will decide the criminal aspect of it, will be decided by these 2 gentlemen, and the civil aspect of it will be decided by the other 3. And I believe they will be instructing the CI, Criminal Investigation Department, to begin an inquiry into this whole matter and necessarily take action. Now, again,
so do you mean to say that the B report will be filed in the next coming days?
Baban?
I'm
positive, because the information already there. About 10 months ago, again on Newsline, I said they should file a B report, mention the names of those people whose names have transpired in those 2 committees, and said the Attorney General must then move court. The CID can move court and obtain a travel.
No, but you're still not answering my question, Mr. Varakul Surya. Are you trying to say that a B report will be filed in the next few days?
No, but I'm trying to say, no, what we want now is to prevent anybody from going abroad. First, and seize the properties that have been earned by this transaction. Now, those are simple matters. Now, today, 3 days ago, in the case of Mr. Udayanga Veeratunga, they went to court and obtained a seizure order. Seizure order is not a final appropriation of the property. There, the court will prevent anybody from selling the property or handling the bank account, be seized until the final order is achieved in the court. So I think already they have delayed it, because now the Attorney General will be responsible. Now, even this Arjuna Mahendra, when he went abroad for the first time, can you remember? The Prime Minister came and defended that stand. He said he had gone for a wedding. It's one of his relations. He'll come back. Then, at that time, Arjuna Mahendra was working under the Prime Minister. But today, when he went this time, neither the Prime Minister informed us, nor did he prevent him from going. I don't know. He must have encouraged him to go. He went, and nobody knows where he is.
So isn't it too late?
This is a very serious matter. My position is, the Attorney General's Department has been sleeping over and done nothing. Now at least I hope they will go to the court and take appropriate action. With Dapula Rivera and Jasanta Kodagoda, I believe that this will happen within a very short time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hemantha Surya, President of the Council. So you mean to say, in other words, that if Mr. Arjun Mahendran is to come to Sri Lanka, it's going to be something like we'll have to wait until the cows fly over the moon?
No. Immediately they must file report, obtain notices to be issued on Arjun Mahendran on last known address. Thereafter, obtain an international warrant.
Thank you
it's
very
not
much.
very difficult.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hemantha Surya, President's Council. It is not yet clear, as I said before, what the President and the Prime Minister's discussion with the Prime Minister of Singapore is going to be. So we'll have to wait and see whether there is an extradition that may take place if they are to continue with the investigations into the central bank bond controversy, and also as far as legal action is concerned. I now move my attention to Mr. Rusiripala Thendakon, senior banker, who is also a civil rights activist. Mr. Thendakon, you've been vocal on the central bank bond controversy since day number one. We are just a few weeks away from a local government election, which has been delayed for many months, many years, and now we're just on the verge of it. How will this play out as far as the upcoming elections are concerned? The time starts now.
Yes, thank you. This now we have waited for many years, at least over 2 years now, since this bond scam took place. We have come to a stage now. Now we are all thinking of the delays in executing what is given in the report. All of us are concerned about that matter, the whole country, because this is a very serious thing. The suspects have been named, the charges have to be filed, the prosecutor is no one other than the state prosecutor, Attorney General. All the powers and facilities are there for them to carry on. But apparently, in everybody's mind, there is a suspicion that things are not moving in the speed in which they were expected to happen. Now we heard, while the bond commission was on, with the with various evidences coming to light, incidents, we were of the opinion that immediately following the bond commission, an action will be filed in magistrate courts and they will initiate the legal processes. Now, we all know that the legal process is a long thing. One has to go to the bribery commission under the bribery laws, then one has to go to courts on the other matters. But there are certain recommendations in this commission report which can be executed without waiting for legal action to be instituted. Now, like, for example, Mr. Hemantha Surya very correctly pointed out a very important aspect of this. This commission report very clearly says that we recommend that pending the consideration of the institution of the aforesaid proceedings, very clear, pending the consideration of the proceedings which they have recommended, assets of the perpetual treasury is limited and its beneficial owners, namely Arjun Aloysius, Jeffrey Aloysius, and if the people associated with it like Kasun Palisena, Arjun Aloysius in his personal capacity, the company and the personal capacity. They say their accounts with the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and other banks, the shares in the National Development Bank PLC and the dividends aggregating out of those share investments should be placed under a lien, so that such assets cannot be disposed in the meantime. It's a very serious thing. Now, I do not see any reason, I am not a legal person, There are eminent legal personalities here. They will.
I need to get back to that in a minute, Mr. Lekon. You need to give me a second. I'm going to consult Mr. Hemant Varankula or Mr. Krishna Varansuriya. Can that be done?
Yeah. A lien is where you, very in simple terms, there are other things, Shami, like Shapiro injunctions, what we used to call Mareva injunctions, where you freeze an asset in a bank. Then a lien is something where you create a legal charge sort of thing. So, say my tab, if I owe you some money and until that is sorted out, there is an authority that will keep this as a lien, pending the conclusion of whether I actually owe you that money or not. And if it is, if I actually I'm found that I owe you, then this will be sold and your amount recovered. That's a lien.
Right. Mr. Lekon, now I want to...
Samir,
yes.
I believe...
What it means, in other words, it is something like a prohibitory notice.
Right. Mr. Lekon, now we heard a UNP parliamentarian stating that 12 billion rupees worth of assets have been seized by perpetual treasuries.
I think if you permit me to explain this situation, this is a complete diabolical misrepresentation.
There is a seizure.
Diabolical misrepresentation, because central bank is not keeping anybody's deposits in the central bank. If it is a commercial bank, the commercial bank will keep others' deposits. Central bank is no place for that. At least the authorities in this country should have known that there is nothing like that. What the central bank holds as a lien today, on account of perpetual treasuries transactions, let the whole country know, is a collateral for the facilities that have been given to them.
Thank you
Which
very
they
much,
expected to hold for any bank.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
That is not a cash deposit as some people are trying to make it out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rishabal Tenekon, senior banker. Mr. Tenekon was also heading a state bank in Sri Lanka. So let me quickly introduce our journalist. On to my immediate right is Nadim Majid, as always. On to my immediate left is Charita Fernando. And on to my far left is Faraz Shaukat Ali, host of Newsline as well. So let's start off tonight's show with Faraz.
Thank you, Shamir. I just thought that I'd read out from John Exter's initial report on the setting up of the central bank. It is to be expected that the full-time governor will ordinarily be the most influential member of the board and will tend to dominate it. They're talking about the monetary board. Accordingly, the governor should be a man of recognized and outstanding competence in understanding of the economic and financial problems of Ceylon and of unquestioned integrity and responsibility. Now then, Mr. Rusripal, I'll ask you this question. Do you think that Arjuna Mahendran fitted that bill?
Well, the commissioners are very clear on this matter for us. Unfortunately, due to the mandate that was given to them in a very limited area, they have not cared to comment on it in detail. Nevertheless, they have made a very clear statement. They have said the question of using a value judgment in the matter of appointing a person to such a high position in the country, they don't believe that it has been exercised. That's a very hard statement, the hardest that they can make with the available facilities in the way that they have been asked to do this. I don't think they could have done anything more than that. It could have appeared as if they were trying to pass a political judgment, but they have said it in no uncertain terms that the persons responsible for making the appointment using the parameters that you spelled out just now, what John Exter said at that time, has not happened in that manner, according to that expectation. So in other words, the value judgment has not been used in the case of the appointment of Arjuna Mahendran. It is obvious today what has happened. You see, they did not foresee the dangerous situation, the risk that would arise by appointing a non-citizen who can run away and keep off and make things entirely difficult for the whole country to go behind him, to seek international support, to get the help of the Interpol. All this would not have been necessary if they appointed the competent person from within.
Mr. Gunasekara.
Go ahead, Sai.
Yeah, there are concerns now. Some have said that there could be two bond commission report. Some have raised raised concerns that a lot of pages are missing from this bond report. Could this be possible?
I don't know. He has gone through this report. I have not gone through.
I believe the answer to that question is there are Annexure 2, which consists of 138 to 140 pages. All those are confidential documents given by the central bank to the commission, and the commissioners have specifically said that it is not to be released to the public. That is the reason why those pages are missing.
These are parts of the annexures.
Yeah, part of the annexures, but now in a court also there are certain confidential reports that are filed which are not given to anyone, only to the judge.
So but the 1,152 page report that has been given to Parliament and that is now available in the online domain, that report is what contains the findings of the Commission.
That's right, okay.
Mr. Risipala,
Yes.
Back to the Commissioner's report.
Yes.
It is reasonable to conclude that Mr. Mahendran directed that bids to the value of 10.058 billion be accepted at the Treasury bond auction held on the 27th of February 2015 for the improper and wrongful collateral purpose of enabling Perpetual Treasuries Limited to obtain a high-value treasury bonds at the auction at low bid prices and high yield rates. It's absolutely crystal clear, isn't it?
It is very much. It is very much for us. The Commission has gone very clearly to state positively and in definite terms that Arjuna Mahendran has committed a crime. In various words of definitions, I can read out the section, it's not necessary. They have said that Arjuna Mahendran has not, it is not a question of failing in duty. It's a willful thing that he has done. And it's a committing of a crime that he describes. It is not something done inadvertently. It is not something done due to a miscalculation. It is a calculated thing. And he has been found fault for many reasons, for telling lies to the, misdirecting the Commission, taking up false positions.
Yes,
And Mr. Varnakula Surya.
let me just get Mr. Gunasekar, you wanted to add something to that?
No, misleading the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister as well. So therefore, it is very clear.
Commission was
and
said that Prime Minister misled. I don't think so.
That's a
Prime
different-
Minister was not misled at all.
Back to you, Mr. Risipala. This is about Mr. Samarasiri, Deputy and the person in charge of the Public Debt Department.
Yes.
Mr. Samarasiri's passivity
Yes.
negated the whole purpose for which the tender board was constituted.
Yes.
And yet, Mr. Samarasiri was continued, he was allowed to retire with grace, complete with his pension intact, and not only that, to add to the woes, he was being considered to be a consultant to the Ministry of Finance.
For us, when you look back, you see a whole series of episodes which cannot be explained from any standards to be treated as being done by responsible people. Samarasiri has been held responsible by the Commission, stating that he has totally derelicted his duties as the chairman of the tender committee, the tender board. And for one, that is one count. The second one is, they say, the Commission feels that they have submitted the report to the Prime Minister on which he relied and made a statement to the Parliament amounting to a misdirection. Whether, as Mr. Hemanta Varnakula Surya says,
with the Commission, there was no misdirection.
Yeah.
I think this was done purposely. And the whole problem is now, you say about Samarasiri, the manner in which Samarasiri was treated could be used as circumstantial evidence
Yes.
to prove the guilt of the politicians who are behind this.
Exactly.
Mr. Varnakula, you said that you don't buy the argument that the Prime Minister was misled by former Governor.
Yes.
Yeah. So the report also says that Prime Minister repeatedly relied upon Mr. Mahendran's assurances that his son-in-law would not act in a manner in which it is a conflict of interest. So how can we hold the Prime Minister accountable in this context?
The Prime Minister gave evidence, that is what he said. But we must connect all the other points together, and then you will see the gun points out at the Prime Minister. Because circumstantial evidence is not what the Prime Minister says, not what the Bond Commission report says. All the circumstances. Now, as Mr. Gunasekara said, when this news came, the Prime Minister went to Parliament, defended the whole incident. And before that, now take for instance the appointment. Now we have been, Prime Minister went and said, long before this, John Exter was appointed, he was not a citizen. Now, but John Exter took the oath of allegiance to the government and to the constitution.
He was brought down in order to
set up central bank. But here, the things are very different. Here, there the Prime Minister recommends him, and he finds that there is no other person who is suitable to this, or there is no other person who can manipulate it by him. Then he brings him down, and he refuses to. He is appointed, though he is not a citizen. Then further, he refuses to take the oath. Now, what has the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance have done? Because Article 61D is very clear in the Constitution. If no person shall not enter upon the duties of his office until he takes and subscribes the oath of describing fourth schedule. So therefore he refuses to take the oath. The Prime Minister nor the Minister of Finance doesn't do anything about it.
Mr. Mahendran's claim.
I'll get back to you. Yes,
today, Professor G.L. Piri said that, the Prime Minister holds sway over the police and the Attorney General's department as well. Therefore, we cannot expect an independent investigation on the part of the Attorney General as long as the Prime Minister holds his office.
That is
These are the
why I
words
say the
of
Prime Minister
Professor
doesn't
G.L.
lie.
Piri.
I will pose this question to Mr.
Krishna,
Yes,
do you agree with that statement?
I
that
believe,
the Prime Minister-
because how can I'm asking you, forget about even
Mr. Varakusure, we will get back to you in a minute.
Independent.
Mr. Varakusure, I need to give an opportunity to Mr. Krishna Varakusure to respond to that. I'll get back to you in a minute. Mr. Varakusure, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this is going to happen?
Yeah, well, I do not know on what basis Professor Piri says that the Prime Minister holds sway over the AG's office. Because legally that is not so. The last we remember was when His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa was President. We remember that the AG's department was brought under the President's office at that time. Yeah. But, so I do not know based on what basis Professor Piri says, the legal don who was a dean at one time in the university, says that the Prime Minister holds sway over AG. However, I do believe that this evening a different complexion was given by His Excellency the President, present President Maithripala Sirisena. When he called upon the Prime Minister, he said, "Mata udav karanna, I want to bring the perpetrators to justice," and he specifically said, "I'm calling upon the Prime Minister to assist me to bring the culprits to book." Now that's a very clear cogent statement, Nadim, compared to what the former Her Excellency Chandrika Kumarasinghe yesterday said. Remember what she said? This man had so much qualifications overseas, so we brought him. You can't make irresponsible statements like that, particularly as a former head of state. And then, in other countries, not this. If you had taken responsibility for giving electricity to 50,000 people and there was a power generation problem, you resign and go.
The thing is this, right? The reason that I asked this, it's not only because of Professor Piri's statement.
Yeah.
Mr. Gunasekara says that as Mr. Gunasekara correctly pointed out, in March of 2000, in March, the Prime Minister made a statement. 2015 made a statement in Parliament in which he sought to portray that there was no ill doing, no wrongdoing in this central bank bond issue. Then the most recent statement that the Prime Minister made subsequent to the issuing of this report, yourself, Mr. Warnakula Surya and Mr. Rusiripala Tennakoon pointed out that this story of the 12 billion being held in the central bank, to quote Mr. Rusiripala, is a diabolical lie.
That's yeah.
So, to quote Mr. Rusiripala Tennekoon, is a diabolical lie.
I said diabolical misrepresentation.
Misrepresentation. In such a backdrop, can we expect the prosecutor, who also happens to be the government's attorney, to carry out to be independent and to withstand political interference?
Up to now, because remember, he is the chief law officer of the state. Our dear friend, a good gentleman, he is the chief law officer of the state. He is not the law officer of the United National Party. The Republic pays him to be the chief law officer of this state. So one would expect, and I still would like to expect, the Honorable Attorney General to do his duty. If the state instructs him, the state, not a particular pawn in the government, the state instructs him to carry out his duty, he is under a duty and obligation to do so. And if he doesn't, I hope some responsible citizens will question this. Even if we have to go to court to question it.
My position is, now, what about an ordinary normal government servant? If somebody alleges that he stole some packet of paper, then the inquiry is held, and before he is convicted, he is interdicted. Then he is taken to court, and he will more than 50,000 rupees remanded. There are no charges framed against him, but only no suspicion. Now, my position is, there are so many items of evidence which makes anyone, make the Prime Minister a prime suspect, by say. Therefore, my position is he must absolve himself. He had been talking and saying that he believes in arresting the corrupt. So when people are calling him various names, so now what he should do is to temporarily resign from his position and then get himself subject to be questioned. Then the Attorney General can accelerate him. My position is, as long as though the Attorney General is the principal law officer, though we have respect for him, I don't think any Attorney General will at this juncture decide to charge him or decide to investigate him by the Prime Minister of this country.
Mr. Gunasekara, I want to pose a question to you. Now, you've been observing the events that have been unfolding. Were you in any way surprised by the Presidential Commission report that was released a few weeks ago? Were you surprised by the outcome of the report in question?
A good fellow.
Were you surprised by the outcome of the report that was published by the Presidential Commission of Inquiry?
Yeah.
Were you surprised, Mr. Gunasekara?
No, I was not surprised. Because I gave evidence before the Commission. With regard to the oath, this is one specific question that the Honorable Chitrasiri put to me. He said, he went through the evidence that I have, the 448 pages, and he said, what is the normal procedure in the court? You get the witnesses to take oaths. Yeah. I said, no, not generally, but in this particular case, I saw to it that everyone, even Mahendra, all the evidence, all the witnesses, I got them to take the oath. And particularly, I got the even Bible. Yeah. Then he said, you followed the court procedure? I said, yes, in this particular case, I had to do it. I did it. And I put the question to Mahendran, now, are you a citizen of Singapore? He said, yes. You are a citizen of Sri Lanka? Yes. Now, you are no longer a citizen of Sri Lanka? No. Why don't you get the citizenship of Sri Lanka? No. If I get, I lose that. I don't want to lose the Singapore citizenship. Then I said, why didn't you take the oath? He said, it never occurred to me, there's no need. So that's the only public. Then I said, you are the only public servant, right from president of this country down to the KKS, only person who did not take the oath and who was managing the central bank.
And violated the Constitution.
Mr. Gunasekara, we saw statements being made by former Minister Bandara Gunawardena as well, with regard to the bond scam, and then he was summoned to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, and the Presidential Commission of Inquiry found him being not correct with the facts that he presented. So there were also allegations by the people from the opposition benches which was malicious in some way, isn't it?
I know something. They were questioning about on the figures, of course. Badula said that the figures are underestimated, and there's something more than that twice. But I don't know. I can't. I mean, you have to go by what the commission.
Commission has said.
Commission was assisted by very capable people, and Auditor General had given a full report.
And the fact
on that basis, so that's why I was not inclined to accept what they say, unless
given the fact that the former
in
minister
which
said
case
that
we must present the case.
Yeah,
You would have gone to the commission and said,
given the fact that
in answering your question, I said I was surprised by such an excellent report.
given the fact that former Minister Bandara Guruvardhana said that you can live with 2,500 rupees a month, he probably got the economies wrong in that instance. Faraz, you have a question
for Mr. Vanakulasuriya. You say that the Prime Minister should step aside.
Yes.
But in the Commission report, I'll just read that, it says here, the evidence establishes that Mr. Mahendran had not been instructed or directed by the Prime Minister to act unilaterally and immediately suspend or stop direct placements in February 2015.
Yeah.
So why should he resign?
No, there are so many other circumstances. In fact, the Commission report has very clearly spells out those circumstances. If you, so now the investigators must analyze those reports and then decide whether there is any suspicion. Now look at the statement he made recently, about a few days ago. What was he trying to say? He was trying to say that this is a civil transaction and that civil court we must ensure that we get back the property. That is true, but at the same time we must also ensure that all those people are punished.
But there's also another point there, and perhaps Mr. Rusripala can throw some light on it. And it is this, that the Commission's period of inquiry, the last day was the 31st of March 2016, which also happened to be the first day of the last bond issued in 2016.
Yeah.
Now, between the 31st of March and the 30th of June 2016, 3 months, Perpetual Treasuries made profits of 6 billion rupees.
Yes.
Nobody is talking about that.
Yes.
Neither the Prime Minister nor the Commission.
Yes. For us, that is, you are very absolutely correct and on the spot on that issue, because the Commission very clearly in number of places says that they are even unable to estimate the real loss that has taken place to the country and the nation on this matter. And Charita, you started this conversation now, the direction of this our discussion. You asked about the Prime Minister's role and something about to do him. The Commission report precisely, very precisely pinpoints where the Prime Minister is to be held responsible. If I permit, if the time permits, I can read all those things. They have, in fact, in one place, they have said, we regret that the Prime Minister behaved in this manner. They use the word regret. What does it mean? They clearly say that this Prime Minister, as the Minister in charge of the subject, has not done what he should have done.
Direction of duty.
That's only one. Yeah. I can quote 4 or 5 instances where they clearly, pinpointedly say, this is what the Prime Minister either has done wrong or not done.
Right. Krishmal, you said about an instance that Sujiva Sen Singh's statement in the political platforms ahead of the local government polls. You also saw individuals like Harin Fernando coming out, you saw individuals like S.M. Marika coming out, Lakshman Kiriella coming out and trying to suppress the media. You see all these people coming out and expressing views. Why do they do this? To defend who? Is it Arjuna Mahendran or is it the Prime Minister?
Yeah, I was referring to the individuals that you refer to. If you recall, I didn't mention any names. I'm referring to all of them who I said are trying to be cardboard Chandiyas now. My gauntlet on behalf of the people, I'm throwing a challenge to all those fellows who want to be Chandiyas now, saying the people are ready. Try, come, ever balawa. try and see. Why they are doing it, I believe, is, Shamir, they used people like us, others, your institutions, to try and show the public that we were going to give you a different mode of governance. They actually, some of them marched on the streets with us. This is what aggrieves me. When people like that who marched against water cannon, against police battalions, are now turning around and stating the same sort of statements that we heard, which they came on the road with us to take on. This is what the people must now realize. The more you go after these goons, I call them goons and I don't mince my words, these goons in red, green or blue coats, you will continue to get leaders, not leaders, misleaders like this. You need to identify individuals with integrity, at least a semblance of wisdom and intellect who will actually do the right thing for you. If not, as Bandlu Minister says, lawmakers, not tea makers. You see, don't send tea makers to make law for you, because they are only good to make tea. So identify individuals who you can trust to make legislation for you and send them in. Don't look at colors, look at individuals. Get moving like the rest of the world. Macron, France, Canada, Germany. Start living with the world, unless even your future generations will blame you, saying this is the country that you left for.
Thank you very much. Faraz, we need to go. We need to go for a short commercial break.
Discounted from your answer.
We need to go for a short commercial break, Faraz. We have to stop at that. We're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's Face the Nation. We have to give equal opportunity to all the speakers who are present here today. So I may interrupt when the speakers are talking, but that's purely because of the respect that we have for the four gentlemen who have come here on our show tonight. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.